Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in to this webinar. And I think before we get into the really exciting conversation that we're going to have today about unified payments and urban mobility, it would be wonderful if all of the panelists could introduce themselves. I'm happy to go first. My name is Thea Fisher, and I am head of global urban mobility for Visa. What that means is that we at Visa are on a mission to uplift everyone everywhere by being the best way to pay and be paid. And we feel that delivering phenomenal payment journeys on what is often the first transaction someone makes in the morning and the last transaction they make at night is a critical part of delivering on that. And furthermore, we've seen firsthand how driving true urban mobility and smoother, more effective payment journeys in cities and around the world, it can truly drive social mobility. So we think it's a wonderful mission, and something that we're really, really passionate about at Visa. Killian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Killian Marr. I head up the partnership team in the emerging verticals in Elavon. I've got a key focus on transit, EV charging, parking, fuel, basically anything unattended. That's sort of the sweet spot that we operate in. So I've been working in the transit space for about 7 or 8 years now and seeing huge change, and there's really exciting progress in payments and transit. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Thanks, Killian. Francesca, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Francesca Tomba. I am a customer service lead and CRM manager. I work for AVM, the Public Transport Society here in Venice, and nothing else.
Great. And Christian?
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I work on innovation and innovative processes in IBM with a specific focus on electronic ticketing system.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. And I think what we wanted to kick off with was really to understand the implication of unified payments in urban mobility. And before we get to that, I think it's worth addressing what are unified payments? What are unified payment experiences? And when we think about the change in urban mobility payments that has taken place over the past 20 years, 20 years ago, primarily when you were paying for public transit, you were taking cash, often a need for exact change in your pocket, and purchasing a paper ticket. And that paper ticket might not have been reusable, it might have been single use. And as we look at the payment journeys and the myriad of different ways to pay that for public transit that people can make today, I think we see increasingly experiences where the payment someone makes with their existing bank card, with an open loop credential, with a mobile payment app or a mobile ticketing app, are all joined together. And we really see sort of a unified payment experience from the first step to the last step in that payment and genuine physical journey. Killian, from Elavon's perspective, how do unified payment systems simplify the payment process for both operators and passengers?
Yeah, I think it's really the convenience. I think that it's the convenience for passengers. It's so much quicker. You mentioned it was paper tickets and you were queuing up for ticket machines and there was queues to pay. And I think I can really recognize it because Ireland is still closed loop. So we're still buying tickets, which is crazy. So we're looking to switch over in the next 2 years, I think. So when I travel to London, I just see it's such a simple journey. It's quick. And then the automatic fare calculation. There's no worrying about zones or how much it's going to cost or the right ticket to get where I need to go. Especially for tourists, I think it's a really simple, the way it kind of calculates the exact fare in the background and then debits your card later on. It's such a simple process. So it's it made a massive improvement in the way we travel.
Absolutely. And I think we also see huge benefits for transit operators like AVM in terms of looking at their overall system and the operational efficacy, and also the kind of data that those public transit operators and authorities are able to see in terms of how their systems are being used, behavioral patterns, where bus routes are heavily utilized from stop 1 to stop 50 at the end, or where they're just being utilized, in the middle, where you're seeing, huge amounts of take up of concessionary products or not so much take up of concessionary products, how tourists are inhabiting a city. And I think that, that nudge and being able to see, okay, this service is really, really helpful for this commuter population, and this service is really, really beneficial for this tourist population or this less frequent traveler is of just immense benefit. And one thing that we hear a lot is how some transit agencies shift from systems where they effectively sell a credential but don't necessarily capture the data on how that credential is being used to travel into a space where you're using an open loop payment, where you can see when a card is used repeatedly and where it's used, and so you know exactly how someone is traveling and exactly when they're making those purchase decisions, which is really helpful insight.
I think the data is key as well, because having that data just enables the transit operators to do so much more. So they know what their customer habits are, they know where they're using, they know if they're using, multimodal transit, and it can really help make sure that they've got a better transit solution for their customers by mining that data.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And I think, we've seen really incredible growth and adoption of Tap to Ride. Last year at Visa, we saw our last fiscal year a 25% year-on-year growth in our processed Tap to Ride transactions globally, and we'd seen about the same in the year prior, our fiscal year 2023. So we see this sort of embracing of that experience. And from your perspective, Killian and Elavon, as a provider of that payment experience, what is it that makes that Tap to Ride technology so appealing to both daily commuters and occasional travelers?
Yeah, I mean, from an Elavon perspective, it's a partnership play for us, right? So our platform is built and we know how to process mass transit in the background, but it's really the transit facilitators, the PSPs up front, that provide that solution, and they've got the know-how. And then from an Elavon standpoint, then we're supporting that customer on the journey, because very often they're moving into new territory, because it would have been, if they're going to open loop, closed loop would have been, ticket vending machines, whereas there's a huge amount more transactions coming through, and it's a different process in the background. So from our perspective, we really support them in that journey and try and make sure they know, if the chargebacks are going to change, what the different solutions are going to need to have, because it's new territory for the transit operators. So it's really supporting that journey, I think, is key from our standpoint.
Absolutely. I think from we love the way that Elavon has really embraced a partnership approach in the space. And we also within Visa have a partnership program, our Visa Acceptance Solutions Partner Directory, which has a bunch of really shares partners, as our partnership with Elavon in this place means that you guys work with Visa Acceptance Platform to deliver on a lot of these payment experiences, both in North America and in Europe. And we really love the way that we're seeing those that partner ecosystem continue to innovate to deliver kind of the next phase of payment journeys. And I think in terms of what making those payment experiences so appealing to both commuters and to regular travelers and to passengers, what we're beginning to see is a kind of a next order of payment experience. If you think 10 years ago was sort of the first stage of open loop payments in transit, and then today we've got lots of transit operators and agencies who are embracing kind of what the next phase of that might look like, including new payment methods and new payment journeys. And we're definitely going to hear from AVM on that. And I think increasingly what we're beginning to see, which is such a delightful experience, is ways in which people can travel with their existing card or credential, but also get a benefit from a concessionary rate. And I know some of our shared Elavon Visa Acceptance Solutions partners in the space are delivering on those experiences, which is really phenomenal. In terms of that decision to travel, and for those infrequent travelers, in 2023 we did a survey. The Visa Economic Empowerment Institute did a survey on reimagining ridership, and in that survey, 45% of riders said that they would take more public transit trips if it were easier to pay. I think we do just see that anything that can make that payment decision, the decision to travel, a little bit easier, there's a little bit less pre-planning, is likely to encourage a population to travel, especially one that's infrequent, you know? And so we do see great uptake with those infrequent passengers, but also with those traditional commuters. I mean, I live in London, and when I get on the tube to go to the office in the morning, I very rarely see an Oyster card. You know, we really overwhelmingly see people making decisions to pay with Tap to Ride. And there's a huge global impact that we see in terms of these new customer experiences and the different operational efficiencies that this drives. And I think when you introduce a new open loop payment system and you go through that system upgrade process, it's really phenomenal what comes out and what those changes are that are wrought. So, Francesca, Christian, I'd love to hear from you. How has the introduction of an open loop payment system transformed public transit in Venice?
Thank you for the question. The introduction of the open loop payment system truly represented a pivotal moment for AVM in the digitization journey of public transport here in Venice. So we can say that it was just a technological upgrade, but a real transformation that has impacted several fundamental aspects of the services. First and foremost, and perhaps the most visible and important aspect, is accessibility and simplicity for the user. Think about how much it was previously necessary to find information about specific fares, locate a physical ticket office or an authorized retailer, perhaps in a city that is unfamiliar to a tourist, like Venice can be. Now, with the open loop system, access to the service is immediate and intuitive. You simply need to tap your contactless bank card, credit, debit, or prepaid card, or your payment-enabled smartphone or smartwatch against the validator on board the bus and tram or before boarding the water bus. This completely eliminates the need to purchase a ticket in advance or to understand the complex fare structure. You know, we have about 500 different fares. It's quite a challenge. The user taps and is ready to travel. This is an epochal change, especially considering the large percentage of tourists who use our service every day. It makes public transport instantly available and understandable to anyone, breaking down barriers from the very first point of contact. This leads us to the second key point, the reduction of barriers to service use. In fact, the open loop system has made public transport significantly more inclusive, breaking down the language, cultural, and operational barriers that often hinder occasional travelers. You know, no prior registration is required, no specific app needs to be downloaded for the occasional travel ticket purchase. The experience is fluid and universal. If you have a contractor's card, you can travel on our vehicles. This is crucial in international contexts like Venice, where immediacy and simplicity are huge added values for millions of visitors each year. Users no longer have to worry about where and how to buy a ticket, only about getting on board. Instead, from a management perspective, the introduction of this system has led to significant operational optimization. For ABM, it means less pressure of physical sales channels, which can thus better manage other types of customers or more complex services. On board, for example, control activities have been simplified. Inspectors, in fact, can quickly verify validation directly on the passenger device or using their own tools. Furthermore, this system generates a much richer and more structured body of data on the actual use of the service for each journey and line. This data is invaluable for strategic planning, timetable optimization, flow management, and gaining a deeper understanding of our users' travel habits, allowing us to continuously refine our offering. Finally, a particularly innovative and constantly evolving aspect here in Venice is the integration with dedicated fare for holders of the Venezia Unica card enabled for navigation services. We are seeing an increasing number of residents choosing to link their bank card to their Venezia Unica card profile. This integration allows them to automatically obtain the dedicated fare simply by using the bank card they associated for validation on board. In a fare context that can be complex with various concessions and user profiles, this solution guarantees simple and personalized access to the service without the need to use additional physical support beyond the user payment card. This is strategic. In summary, the open loop in Venice has not just been a change in payment technology, but a driving force for greater accessibility, a radical simplification of the user experience, an improvement in operational efficiency, and an innovation in fare integration, positioning our public transport system at the international forefront.
Amazing. I mean, you've all done just such an incredible job on delivering that solution, and it's just an amazing experience. I was in Venice recently, and it was just easier for me to get around versus the last time I was there as sort of an infrequent person in Venice. So, a phenomenal job. And I think, Christian, we'd love to hear from you. Are there any specific challenges that you faced in implementing the system, and how were they overcome?
Yeah, we have to face three big challenges before the new EVM system was ready. We manage each step with planning and great teamwork. The first challenge was changing all the older validators because we have to install about 2,500 new devices on all buses, trams, and water bus stops. This was needed to allow contactless payment. After that, we started step by step, beginning with lines that had fewer passengers. We started with the people mover, then at the trams, the airport connection, buses is Mestre, and lines to Lido and Palestrina. In the end, the system was active across the entire transport network. This helped us to fix problems and make a correction. The second challenge was we had to integrate different fare system. For example, suburban buses and use fares based on distance, while in the city buses use the time-based fares. ADM has about 500 different types of fares. We have to work to connect the system and make sure the price was always correct. Obviously. Now, think that we are moving from CBT to ABT system, from card-based ticketing to account-based ticketing. In the CBT system, the ticket is stored or card on paper. In ABT system, the ticket is connected to a passenger's account. People can just use a contactless payment card to travel. This makes things easier, especially for those without a pass. With ABT system, can find the best price for each trip automatically. It, it also let us offer discounts or passes on how much the people travel. It helps us to reduce the fare evasion and works better with other transport systems. In the future, it will let us offer monthly or yearly passes based on real use. Finally, the third challenge was communication, the most important one, because for over than 100 years, people were used to buy tickets before their trips. The new NDF system is very different. We have to explain it clearly to passengers, staff, and also to ourselves. It was not a technical change, but a cultural one. This project was possible because we have worked together with many partners, technical companies, banks, and several teams inside ADM, like IT, customer service, and communication. The communication team help people to understand the new system. We always try to balance innovation, safety, rules, and cost to create a modern ticketing system.
Fascinating, Christian. And those are some big challenges, but also it sounds like you sound so positive when you talk about it. You do make it sound like it was a great step forward in terms of that payment experience and payment journey, and that you were set up for further innovation in future. That's great. And I think, you've talked a little bit about the role of the solution provider, which is Conduent, right? Um, and and I think we know how critical the ecosystem of hardware suppliers, PSPs, back office providers, system integrators, whatever role it is exactly they play, mobile ticketing app vendors and developers in this space are to deliver on that. And I know, one of the ways that we're super excited from a Visa perspective that we've lent in to try and help enable this ecosystem is through our Visa acceptance platform, which was present in 43% of the tap to ride launches that we saw overall around the world in our last fiscal year 2024, which is really incredible and something that we're super, super proud of. But from Elevon's perspective, what role does that collaboration with technology partners and payment partners play in the successful deployment of these unified payment systems for mobility operators?
I think that's one of the key things, Thea, is that the Visa acceptance platform makes the implementation on Elevon side incredibly simple because it's the solution provider just connects to that in the background, and because the connection between Elevon and Visa Connect was built 2 or 3 years ago, there's no real work for us to do that. So that connection comes straight through, so we can then focus on supporting the customer journey in the background, which I mentioned before is key because it's a whole new solution. And as Christian mentioned, the different things they have to go through in the background to implement on their side, it's hugely taxing. So what we do is we support from our side. So we've got relationship managers who will support the solution provider. We've also got relationship managers to support the customer as well. And they'll go through that journey with the customer and develop new reports. Obviously, there'll be a whole suite of reporting that will support. So, if it's chargeback reports or transactional reports, because they'll have to kind of change the whole reconciliation system in the background. So we'll support that process, support that journey really through our staff who are really experienced in dealing with transit operators and transit agencies. Elevon's now, we've got transit customers in 13 countries in Europe, so we've built up a lot of experience of the challenges that those transit operators will go through when they're launching a new tap to go system. So that's the
Yeah, that's a great answer, Killian. And I think one thing listening to you talk, it really hit home for me how critical it is. There are a lot of nuances to transit payments, and it's so helpful having an acquiring partner like yourselves who have a lot of experience with those transactions because They are often non-standard transactions. I mean, we all know that, I mean, from Visa's perspective, mobility and transport transactions, or MTT, and the other schemes have similar frameworks. We know that they don't look the same as a retail payment, in terms of the same thing that's happening is when you go and buy a coffee from your local coffee shop is not what's happening in the background. But also having that experience working with this ecosystem of partners and supporting them is just incredible to be able to bring that into a new uh, transit implementation, and to be able to partner with a transport operator or agency as they go through this journey, potentially for the first time, of making that really material infrastructure uplift that often accompanies implementing open loop payments. Especially as we look ahead and see more and more kind of unified omni-channel payment experiences at the core, where operators and agencies are looking at, how do I make sure that this is the right in-app payment experience, and this is the right tap to ride payment experience, this is the right concessionary payment experience, and ideally that they're all tied together, which I think we're going to see more and more of. So on that note, what does the future of mobility look like to you?
From an Elavon standpoint, we're seeing, we're really focused on what we're seeing in the marketplace from our customers. So it's our, the transit operators are the ones deciding what the future of payments look like. So it's really that interoperability piece, where linking all the different transit networks together. We're also seeing big strides in account-based ticketing, so that every form of payment is recognized as one customer through the whole transit journey. So if you're buying your ticket online, then your phone or your watch, it recognizes you as that passenger, and then applies the right concessions to you as you travel through the network. And then also linking it in, layering that with navigation systems like Google Maps, so you know when the train is going to come, when the bus is going to be there, how much it's going to cost, and you can really plan your journey. Because I think that's the key, is to make it as simple as possible. If you're not worried about getting the right change for a bus, you're just tapping your card, linking everything together, so it just makes that journey really easy, and makes it easier to use public transport, which is really the focus. We want to make sure that people are kind of out of cars, using public transport as much as possible, and that's where I think we're really excited about helping that journey through, and making it fast and easy to travel through transit networks.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely what everyone is striving for and should be striving for. I think I love what you said there about connecting up the concessionary rates with an open loop credential. So your contactless card or your bank card in your pocket, or perhaps your Apple Pay or Android Pay in wallet, because I think we're increasingly seeing that. And we're seeing some really exciting uses of existing government databases where people will already be registered, enabling people to register their cards for concessionary right, to a certain discount that they already have. Maybe that's a student discount or a veteran's discount. We're also seeing some really exciting, increasingly use of issued cards, where we're seeing Visa prepaid issued in place of traditional closed loop cards, which is really exciting, especially where those cards are sometimes issued digitally first. So it's a really smooth experience, and can increase financial inclusivity. We're also just seeing, I think, some phenomenal next generation in-app experiences as cities look at kind of pulling in the first and the last mile of that travel, from micromobility to sort of other transport modes, into one single app, and also the different layers, as you say, the phenomenal experience that you get when you travel around using open loop, with your Google device, tapping with your Google Wallet these days, and that amazing integration of that journey is just really, really phenomenal. And I think as we look ahead, one thing that we increasingly are seeing is sort of just, what does that next generation look like? Because so many of these operators today, and I think we see this with this phenomenal implementation that the team in Venice have implemented and designed, is you get to benefit from the early implementations of open loop and those learnings, and then kind of empower them and put them to work into a payment experience for delivering unified payments for the future.
I think it opens up other options outside just transit as well. Because if open loop is in play, then we're seeing kind of trends towards concerts. If you book a concert ticket, then you can bolt on your transit to that. So you can book your ticket can be linked into that one journey. So we're seeing that come through as well, which is really interesting. So you could actually book a ticket to a concert, and that will actually you can include your journey as well. So include your train, include your bus, and then it'll all be paid through the one recognized token. So just as you tap whatever your device you want to tap, it'll connect that through to the one seamless journey. I think without open loop, that wouldn't be possible. And that's a really interesting way of looking at the future of what's going to, what we're seeing in trends in the transit space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you think about it from the perspective of a city who knows they have a huge concert coming up and is very worried about the kind of congestion on the roads, if you can nudge a population by giving free travel on public transit to get them, onto the train or onto the bus rather than queuing up for a taxi or in their own personal vehicle, that's an incredibly powerful behavioral nudge. And as well as a great user experience for the concert goer. Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's really exciting to think about what's coming in the future. Well, I thank you so much for your time today. I'm losing my voice. But this was a really fascinating discussion. And I think we've heard a lot about what it takes to deliver a phenomenal modern mobility payment system. And also how helpful it is to have a truly experienced acquiring partner who is supporting that existing network of suppliers, system integrators, PSPs in the market to help deliver on that solution. And really, really, so great job. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time.